Welcome to the Living the Dream podcast with Curveball. If you believe, you can achieve. Hello and welcome to another episode of Living the Dream with Curveball. I'm your host, Curveball, and today I'm joined by Giuseppe. He was a corporate refugee that was commuting 5 hours to New York City, and he decided to turn all this around by starting a business. He is here today to talk to you about his experiences and the mistakes he made, hoping to help someone out that is in the same position that he was in. Giuseppe, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks, Curveball. It's a pleasure.
All right. Why don't you start off by giving everybody a little bit of background about yourself, anything you might want them to know, and we can get it kicked off.
Yeah, so I appreciate that. So I was first generation Italian. My family, when they came here, they opened up a restaurant. So I got my first steps in entrepreneurship or experience, I should say, from that business, and that was probably the best experience. Ended up going the corporate route. Wanted to see what else was out there. Eventually, after speaking with my wife, deciding, together that just the job itself, corporate America just wasn't a great fit for me. So we decided to use our savings to invest in our first business, and actually teamed up with a business coach that helped me to decide between a startup or a franchise. And I really love the value proposition of a franchise. So we went that route back in 2006, 2007. And it's been great. I own a few franchises, and now the person that actually helped me get into franchising, which is a franchise coach and consultant, I actually got into that business as well in order to help people make one of the biggest life decisions that they've ever made. So very excited in what we do. We do help quite a few people figure out if business ownership is the right fit. And I'm excited. I really enjoy what I do on a daily basis.
Well, let's talk about what kind of franchise that you own.
Yeah, so I own some franchises in both cleaning and maintenance in the past, and right now I am actually part of an organization. So my company works with a company by the name of Franchoice, probably the leader in franchise consulting, and they specialize. It is a non-franchise, and they specialize in helping anybody essentially figure out if business ownership and franchise ownership, if they're a right fit. And they have a 4-step process that we can get into maybe either now or later. You let me know. But 4-step process to figure out what type of franchise is the right fit. And it's not your traditional way. It's not about picking a few franchises to see if they fit. It's more of figuring out what you really want. And then from that model, what are 2 or 3 companies that match that ideal business, that ideal model?
Yeah, let's get into that right now because my next question was going to be, what does it take to start a franchise, and how do you find out if you're a good fit? And let's talk about the model that you have.
Yeah, sure. So, yeah, I mean, I tell everyone, on our first call, we like to obviously get to know one another. It's mostly allowing, anyone that we're working with to just to let us know where they're at, where they're looking to be, kind of what their goals are, and is family involved? Get the spouse or whoever's involved in that business. The entire family really should be part of that decision making process. I tell everyone franchising is not better than a startup and vice versa. Technically you can own both. I tell people that franchising, like any other business, you have a model already put together for you. So someone has already, figured out the systems, what the right process is, the marketing and things like that, and essentially created, but once again, trial and error. They create that infrastructure. You run the business, and it can be replicated throughout the entire country. So when I sit down with someone and we talk about franchise or non-franchise, I basically say, do you want to figure everything out from A to Z, the product and the service, and figuring out how to distribute it, figuring out how to find customers? Or do you prefer the model already created for you? So, as I mentioned, one is not better than the other, but it's more of what you prefer. That was the path for me. With how we help, our candidates, I basically I answer any questions they have on franchising. If we feel it mutually we're a good fit to move forward, we go right into a second call where we prior to the call we send out a brief questionnaire to gather some additional information. We spend about an hour or so really digging deep, kind of painting a picture as to what your ideal business looks like. What type of employees, meaning are they skilled employees? Is the training, where you can train the employees relatively quickly, or is training, where you're sending people off to the corporate office to get trained, maybe have some better retention? So we ask a lot of questions. Territory, where you want to be. Do you want to work from home? I always jokingly say, do you want to log into your laptop and work from your pajamas, from your home office, or do you want to go to a retail location? So once we figure out kind of without getting into the actual franchise names, but what the ideal business looks like, we document it. We create a model, 2 pages of roughly what that looks like. And then I go to work finding 2 or 3 really good franchise companies that meet all your requirements, that fall in line with your financials and what you're looking to invest. I speak with every franchise company directly to make sure that there's territory involved. So it's really exciting. We don't like to look at the franchise first because, when you look at a franchise first, you start to almost change your wants and your ideal business to match the franchise. So with 4,000 plus franchises out there, I say it's much easier and actually less overwhelming to reverse engineer it, figure out what you want on paper. We figure out what franchises, and more importantly, are they available? Does the franchise company feel like you're a good fit? And just to give you a quick example, many franchisors may not feel it's a good fit based off of how you are looking to run that business. So, for example, many people will call me and say, I want to keep my day job. I work in the city, New York City, in the financial services, and I want to kind of run this business on the side. Many franchises may not allow that. Others will offer training as well as allow what we call semi-absentee ownership, where maybe it's 15 to 20 plus hours a week. So we have those conversations behind the scenes so that you don't have to worry about it. We'll even look into if there's resales available. If you're looking at an area that's been completely sold out, we'll go back to the franchisor and figure out if there's resale opportunities. So a lot of great stuff. And then our job, and that's where our job begins. Once we make the intro, you speak with each franchise company, we coach you throughout the entire process to figure out if that specific franchise company is a good fit. So we coach you on questions you should be asking the franchise company, questions you should be asking franchisees, and the list goes on. So we're very, we work together very closely before, during the due diligence process, and even afterwards, after investing in the franchise. If you are looking to invest in other franchises or expand your business, we're your go-to for all those types of questions in growing your business, or just even if it's as simple as a vendor recommendation, like an attorney or an accountant.
Let's talk about the pros and cons of the models that you discussed, figuring it out yourself or following the model that's already been created. What are the pros and cons of both those models?
Yeah, so basically a franchise, it's a business in a box. Sometimes we call it a business on training wheels, and obviously a startup, you're figuring everything out yourself. So on a startup, the pro, if and obviously if this is a good match, but the pro is that you create everything. You don't have someone telling you, okay, well, this is the product line, and you don't have to ask and say, well, I want to add. So I own a McDonald's, and you want to add hot dogs or pizza and things like that, which aren't on the menu. You can suggest it. That's actually where the $5 foot long idea came from, an actual franchisee of the system. So, but going back to a startup, the pros are you can create everything. from start to scratch. Start to finish, I should say. You can create it; it's yours. You can put your name on. Create the logo, put your name, in the company, in the actual brand. The biggest negative, kind of, I would say, of any type of startup, and I hear this constantly, and I'm sure you know people like this. I know I do, is that there are some great ideas, but without action, an idea doesn't go anywhere. So there are people that I know personally and people that I've talked to that have these great ideas, and it sits on their business plan, sits on the laptop, and just doesn't go anywhere. So, and that would be the con. So sometimes the startup may be not as high as a franchise, but factoring in, just the wasted time because you were sitting on it, not sure what to do. Sometimes that costs you as far as just opportunity costs. On a franchise, you have the complete opposite. If obviously if it's the right fit for you, but you have a system, and that system is in place. And going back to the McDonald's example, they give you the menu, so there's really nothing to change. I myself would love that. I just love work. I love running with something that's working. But for that person that's creative, that is creative in the kitchen, that wants to add to the menu, then I would just say franchising is just not the right fit, because that has all been figured out. There's a science, there's a methodology. It's all been figured out to the penny, and exactly how everything is actually cooked and processed, and from A to Z. So on the franchise side, you have to follow the system. If you're not following the system, number one, there's no reason to own a franchise. There's less of a chance of being successful. And with the franchise, obviously, if you are going off the system, not just following the marketing, but not following through with certain requirements, obviously there's going to be a call from the corporate office. So it's meant for people that truly want, you could still be creative, but you need to follow the system. And I always tell everyone, some people start out with a franchise as I almost call it like a stepping stone into business. And that next business, maybe that's the motivation you need to launch your startup. Maybe it's the motivation, the people behind you, the capital, the money you made from the franchise. So definitely pros and cons to both. Franchise or startup is a business. At the end of the day, there's risk involved. Franchise will mitigate some of that, in that you have the system built, and you can also speak with and work with franchises all over the country, depending on the size of that business. So two great. I always say, no one wants a business. In my opinion, they need it. It's a lot of work. So two different vehicles to get you to hopefully, where you want to be, which ultimately we hear the same thing: more money, more time, and freedom to spend with your family, or just freedom to travel. So we hear a lot of the same motivations for owning a business.
So let's talk about funding for franchises. How would you get funding if you did not have the available funds? And on average, how much does it cost to
Mhm.
start a franchise? And how much of a percentage do you have to give back to the corporate when you are doing a franchise?
Right. So, good question. So, I'll start off with the royalty. Franchise is traditionally, from the many that I've spoken with and worked with, it's a percentage, and that percentage is which is on total revenue, I should say, not on profitability, but on revenue. It's anywhere from 3-4% up to 10%. And the big question is, what exactly are you getting for your franchise? So for that royalty, I should say. So for anyone looking at a franchise, don't compare and say, well, I'm going to go with this franchise because the royalty is less. Figure out what exactly you're getting. So if it is 10%, it may be broken down into 5% royalty goes to the profitability of the corporation, the franchisor. It may be 3% for a call center, 2% for marketing. So you want to make sure you're very clear. And every franchise will give you a franchise disclosure document. A lot of people have heard, by its initials, FDD, and it'll give you a breakdown as to what you're getting and exactly what the fee breakdown is, which leads into funding and the investment. So the investments, literally, there's franchises. I've heard of franchise fees as low as $10,000 into the millions. One key, and what I tell everyone is, don't focus so much on the franchise fee, focus on the total investment. So you have a true idea of what the franchise is, what the investment's going to be. So when you speak with a reputable company, they're going to give you a item 7, and that's going to be universal across all franchise companies. And that item 7 is going to give you an investment range. So, there's a franchise fee, which is going to be the same for everyone. So typically, whatever that franchise fee is, and they've run from, as I mentioned, 10,000 to as high as 100,000. There's that fee, which is a one-time fee for the license, for the ability to do business as a Subway or McDonald's franchisee. And then there's going to be other fees in there, such as a technology fee. If it's a store, or a restaurant, there's going to be brick and mortar build out costs. So there's other fees. So they're going to factor that all in. And at the end of the day, you're an extension of the franchise company, an extension of the brand. They want to see you do well, and they want to make sure you represent the brand well as well. So they want to make sure you're set up for success. And they'll say, these are our minimum financial requirements. Just because you can afford the franchise itself, they want to make sure that you have 6 months living expense, so that if you are the only income for the household and you quit your job, they want to make sure you have some money aside to pay your mortgage or your rent or your monthly expenses. In our business, it's really nice. So what we do is typically after our first call, we always make an introduction to a funding company. So taking a step back, we don't charge for our services. We're paid directly from the franchise companies. They pay us a referral fee. So there's no monthly costs or fees. There's no contracts. Same goes for our referral partners. They will offer you guidance. There's no fee for the guidance unless you move forward with a product such as a SBA loan. So what our funding partners will do is they'll do a full analysis, and they'll say, okay, based off of the type of business you're looking for, based off of the money you have in the bank and your investments, these are the 3 options that we offer. And there's even a 4th option. And that 4th option, it may be a home equity line of credit, utilizing the equity in your home. And that may be a product that they do not offer. So they may recommend going to the bank. So I like that because they're very honest. They do a full analysis. They don't just recommend products that they have. They recommend, vehicles like a home equity loan to go directly to the bank. So having options is great. Most people, when it comes to funding, are not sure exactly what's out there. And that's why companies like we use a company, Fran Fund, Guidant Financial, and Bennett Trends. Those are 3 of our companies that we use quite a bit. And they'll do that full analysis for you. And going back to, options that most people don't know about, there are a lot of options. There's traditional loans, home equity. We've all heard of them. But 2 that I find interesting are portfolio loans. You can actually take a loan on your investments. So the great part about that is the interest rates are very low, and you don't have to sell your stocks, bonds, mutual funds, and things like that in order to access that money. So basically, you're taking a loan on your money, and they'll figure out a structure and charge you a fixed percent. And the other, which has been probably by far one of the most popular next to a traditional SBA loan, is a rollover of retirement funds. So there is a way, it's called a ROBS plan, where you can essentially access 401k money from a previous employer and utilize and roll over that money for your business. No penalties and things like that. Essentially, you're just liquidating from the funds or whatever investments you were in to roll over into the business. And in that, you're able to fund the business, pay yourself a salary, and use those funds. So really, there are truly a lot of options for someone looking at a business. Don't assume, franchises don't cost millions, as I mentioned. On the very low end, 10 or 20,000. I've heard of maybe one, that low, but I would say typically of companies we work with, you're looking at an all-in investment of maybe 60, 70,000 plus, and various, as I mentioned, options in order to fund. So don't assume it costs millions of dollars. There are lots of options, both in funding, investment levels, and there's literally a franchise in every industry, from brick and mortar retail and restaurants to employment services, water smoke mitigation, porta potties, dumpsters, you name it. There's literally a franchise in every industry.
Well, let's talk about, you said in the beginning that you talked to your wife and you realized corporate America wasn't for you. But at the same time, you're dealing with corporate America and you're basically helping people get into corporate America. So, how did you decide what you were doing at first? And you can talk about what you were doing versus switching over to what you are doing now because it's still corporate America, in my opinion.
Yeah, so so to answer your question, so I was in the investment world for many years, and just wasn't fulfilled, wasn't happy. So when speaking with my wife and looking for what else was out there, I did hunt and look for other jobs, and just felt, my 5 hour commute, living in New Jersey, commuting into New York, no matter where you live, it seems to be at least it seems to be a minimum of 2 hour round trip commute. I just happened to live further south. There were subways involved, and just not fun. So I realized the corporate route just wasn't for me, and that's when I went back to my business roots, right? And the entrepreneur, my family, helping run that family business, and that's how I got into franchising. So I do work with a lot of corporate executives and help them make that decision. Many feel like they're stuck, given the pandemic and where people are at. Many people have been furloughed, have lost their job, and they're thinking to themselves, "Okay, do I want to go back, and have a job?" And by the way, there's nothing wrong with having a job. I talked to quite a few people that contact me looking for a business. They've read things online. Maybe they've received advice from someone that maybe never owned the business, which is always a little scary. So I always give my feedback. I always talk about my story and, where I'm at. And, I don't regret anything in my life. As much as I maybe wasn't happy with my job, it gave me the flexibility to research franchise companies during my lunch break. I made a good income, which I was able to fund my first business. So no regrets. Everything happens for a reason is kind of my motto. So I help the corporate execs and talk them through, maybe you should stay with your job. The grass isn't always greener. So what are your motivations? Why are you looking to do this? In some cases, the motivations are off. They're just doing it for the money. And I go, that's not what entrepreneurship is about. You could definitely make money, but there's much easier ways, in my opinion, to make money if that's just your number one and only motivator. So we just talk about what it takes to be an entrepreneur, set the expectation level. You own a franchise. You don't just buy the franchise, open up the doors, and it runs itself. It's still a business. You still have to oversee it. So I educate, we really don't sell anything. It's all education. It's all, there's a lot of preconceived notions of what a franchise or a business is. As I mentioned, most people say, I'm interested in franchising, but I don't have millions of dollars. They don't realize that there's literally a franchise in every industry and investment level. So lots of education. I even talked to quite a few people that say, I want to own that business. It sounds like a great fit. They just cannot let go of their job and the benefits to begin with. So we explore semi-absentee ownership, and we talk about what that looks like. And obviously I always tell people, you're looking at a little bit more of an investment, not that you're going to have a higher franchise fee, but you may, depending on the system, have to hire a general manager maybe to run the store, to run the business. So I always say I kind of like to set the expectation level, let them know what's to come. And, so that's what we do. There are people that, I work with outplacement centers, career placement centers, and just, people in transition all the time. And sometimes when we feel it's not a good fit, we will send them over to those people to maybe find another job. So maybe they were just truly unhappy. Business ownership is exciting. Maybe they were watching The Profit or Shark Tank, two of my favorite shows, and maybe they just got really excited and how well people were doing, and maybe working with Mark Cuban or something like that, or Mr. Wonderful. So I kind of I educate them. I give them my opinion, and I give them resources. So, for example, I had a gentleman, young gentleman, graduated college, had a business in college, did extremely well, exploring franchising. but just he did well, but he just did not have the funds. The funds were invested. He did not have any liquidity, and I told him, I think you're a great fit for franchising. Given your background, given your accomplishments, I think you'd be a great fit. But why don't we work on a plan to save up a little bit? There are funding options, but that's still going to spread you a little bit thin. So why don't we follow up in 6 months? I give everyone my personal email and phone number. They can contact me anytime. I don't have someone answering my phones or emails or texts. And we touch base. But maybe in 6 months, we revisit the franchise and figure it out. But for the other people that we mutually agree maybe it's not a good fit, they're in great hands. I always refer them to a headhunter, or I should say an executive recruiter, an outplacement center, someone that I've actually talked with, maybe had on the show. They're able to support them there. And if need be, we get on a 3-way call, and I give my input, and I'm all about helping as many people as possible. And not everyone that talks to me ends up buying a franchise, and that's fine. I have no problem with that as long as I did right by that person.
So let's talk about some of your successes and failures and your journey of getting into franchising and helping people get franchises or startups. Talk about your successes and failures.
Yeah. So as far as successes go, I'll start with failures. One thing that they don't teach you is that you can't be an expert in every area. And I think I went into business ownership saying, okay, I had a really strong sales and financial background, but not so much on the marketing, specifically with social media. So in the very beginning, funds were tight. It was my first business. I invested quite a bit, and I try to figure things out on my own. And so I went in, I invested my own money, took a course, worked with a coach, trying to figure out the best avenues of marketing. And although we did have some success, and I learned, quite a bit, which is, I learned marketing maybe better than the next person. I just took a course where I actually went through to my own business, experimented, spent my own money. So as much as good of an education as that was, and an experience, when we talk about failures and things, the one thing I didn't know, or I should say, the one thing I learned was that I lost a lot of time. So if my strength was sales, when you do an analysis of your strengths and weaknesses and things like that, I missed out on a lot of sales because I was too busy figuring out the marketing, when I could have easily outsourced it or worked out something with some type of arrangement with someone, being a new business owner and having them run with the marketing. So definitely spent a lot of time there away from sales and what I did well. And I don't know if it was, the business wasn't a failure, but definitely slowed down my progress. And looking back and talking to some really successful people and other business owners, I realized that that's something that definitely slowed down my growth. And as far as success goes, and that goes on the flip side, years into owning a business where I was getting really kind of bogged down with a lot of the customer issues and acquisition and marketing and all the other stuff. I wanted to work on the business, not in the business. So I hired a general manager, and that freed up my day to do what I enjoyed. And I like sales. So, I didn't mind being on the road and talking to potential clients. And I enjoyed that part. So I think with any business, you don't have to be an expert in all areas. That was what hurt my business. And I think once you outsource it, or have someone kind of take that off your plate, and you run a business and you do something you're good at and you enjoy, I think that increases your odds of success. And that definitely helped with the growth of my business. Sorry. So I think those are some things, some key takeaways in my business. I'm still learning as I go. I'm 15 years in, and I feel like every day is a new learning experience. But I would just encourage everyone to find, there's a book that just came out. It's called Who Not How by Dan Sullivan. And I would, highly recommend that book. He's the owner and founder of Strategic Coach. And it's right in the title. It's who, not the how. So, not figuring out who, what marketing is the best way. Is it texting? Is it email? Is it certain social media platforms? It's the who. Who is that person that can help you get in front of clients? if it is that marketing agency, having them, follow their plan, their forte and what they're good at, and figuring out the who, that either a person or a company to help you get to where you want to be. So, a little plug on a book from Dan Sullivan, and as I mentioned, it's a quick. I think it was 99 cents on Amazon Kindle, and one of the best and quickest reads that I've ever read during my entrepreneurial journey.
Tell us the name of your company and tell us about any upcoming projects that you might have coming up, and also give us some final thoughts for people who might be looking to own their own business.
Yeah, so Franchoice, so that is the name of the company. My website is myfranchiseroadmap.com. And the beauty, it's a very simple website that we built intentionally that gives you some information on, there's a blog on entrepreneurship, but we also have, so anyone listening in can go right to the website and start listening to the podcast. Our podcast, the podcast name is Franchise Freedom. And we interview people, franchise companies, attorneys, accountants, people that are in currently in career transition, people that have gone through career transition where they went from employment to business owner. We even have guests on there that a good friend of mine in town that pivoted his DJ company to a sweet shop where they're selling candies and chocolates and things like that. So really, really good information. And you're hearing it from all different angles. So myfranchiseroadmap.com. Take a look. The podcast's on there. We also offer, if you click on the video tab, a webinar that we recorded, and it's about 20 minutes. And if anything, if you watch or do one thing, I would definitely check out the webinar. It's me speaking. It's as I mentioned, 20 minutes, and it goes through the differences between owning a business and employment. It talks about risks. There are also risks when owning, or I should say, when having a job where a lot of people specialize in one function. Their promotion is based off their manager. They're not truly in control of their career in the event they're laid off. What's the plan B? So plan B, or what we call the safety net, is potentially a business. Maybe it's a side business that is a side business while you're working, and then a full-time business in the event you decide to leave, furloughed, laid off, whatever the situation may be. So really good presentation. And if you have the time, click on book. And I wrote a book last year. It's also called Franchise Freedom. It's a manifesto, and basically talks about, gets into a lot more detail. So a lot more detail than the presentation, but it talks about my story. It also talks about doing it on your own, as far as figuring out if business ownership and franchising is the right fit, and starting to research companies. So you can do it on your own, but I say why go through the hours and hours of figuring it out, where you can leverage my experiences. I too utilize a franchise coach and consultant 15 plus years ago. I learned a lot from that person, and I also incorporate a lot more from that, given certain things I wish I knew, or maybe I should have considered. So I incorporate all my knowledge as a non-franchise owner, franchise owner, and everything in between, and I put that in the book. So I encourage people to podcast, video, read the book. It's a free download. You can pick it up on Amazon. I think it's $4.95 on Amazon. And then just there's a contact tab. You can email me. You can get right on my calendar right through the website. And I always offer everyone listening in, anyone that's going to be calling me, 20-minute call, and we'll brainstorm some ideas, figure out if business ownership is the right fit, and answer any questions you may have. And then if things go well and we mutually decide to work together, we'll schedule a follow-up call. As far as what I'm working on, I am working on a lot more video, a lot more content. The book kind of is a summary of what we do. So instead of, I was thinking about a version 2.0, but since I felt like I covered a lot of the aspects of figuring out if business ownership is the right fit, starting to put together more video content where I can just simply send videos to people. So if someone signs up for our email course, email course on franchising, which is also a free course right on the website. They'll get more video with me talking and just from my experience. So basically, instead of me on a call, it'll be more of chunking what we talk about into 5 minutes here and 2 minutes there on, what's a franchise and how do I fund it? That may be topic one. And the second topic would be, what do I do if I'm stuck between two franchises and I can't decide? Or how do I read the franchise disclosure document? So just providing more content for people to read so they can get over their fear, right? Their uncertainty, their anxiety, and educate themselves to truly figure out if franchise ownership is the right fit and which is the right franchise. So I do that. It's just a passion of mine. It's something I love. And to be honest, I wish all this existed when I was going through my search. So here to help anyway. As I mentioned, myfranchiseroadmap.com will give you all my contact information and info on the book. And feel free to download and share with anyone that you feel may be a good fit for business ownership as well.
You want to throw out your social media links, or do you just want people to go to the website to get that information?
Yeah. You can go right to the website. It's if you go on social media, it's also on my website. It's GG, my initials, the franchise guide. It's all the same for Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and we just created a new YouTube page, which will be rolling out a video podcast going forward. So feel free. All the social links are on the website as well, and definitely check out YouTube. We'll be posting a lot more videos and content on that page.
Ladies and gentlemen, Giuseppe. Giuseppe, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure, and look forward to speaking again soon, Curveball. Thank you.
And listeners, please be sure to follow, rate, review, and tell a friend after listening. For more information on the Living the Dream podcast, visit www.djcurveball.com. Until next time, stay focused on living the dream.